Let me find my mute. There we go.
All right, I'm live. Hi, I'm TabNation, Thom, out of Delaware, USA.
Hi, hello, Montreal. Yeah, Joe in Texas. Yeah. Isaiah from the Arizona. So hope everyone's doing well. It's Friday. Yay.
Yep.
And I see, if anyone has any questions, I see guys here, and I know he had sent me an email earlier about a topic, but and the guy, it's perfectly fine if you want to go first here. I'm just going to throw it out there. So for people who don't know, if you have questions, oh, by the way, I'll find the link, or John has a handy, but we'll put it in the YouTube chat. If you want to join if you have a question and you want to join Zoom and can actually talk, share your desktop and whatnot, we'll put the link there. But yeah, Guy, did you have a specific question?
Yes, I have.
Oh, can you turn your mic up at all or anything?
I can barely hear you.
Guy, can you turn your mic up at all, or maybe it's switching mics or something? It's really low. Maybe select a different microphone.
Yeah, I think switch. Give me a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. You click the little mic button on the Zoom toolbar, and you should be able to see the other mics.
So anything you're working on, Joe, real quick?
Okay. I've been I have it ready to send to you. We were working. You and I were working on the auto hockey / convention / seminar virtual event, and I have the API call so you can go pull and see what's
nice.
there. So I got that done.
Yeah, if anybody's checking this out, Joe and I were thinking maybe in a few months, maybe during the summer, doing a auto hockey convention where we would have like panels, like a normal convention. It would be online. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to travel. So, we'd have guest speakers like John to do a whole thing on, not just the stuff he's working on, but how did he get into auto hotkeys also. Like a interview, then we open the floor to questions, that kind of thing. If you guys have any topics you want to hear about specifically that we could talk about for maybe like half an hour or more, let us know, that kind of stuff. So it's in the early development. We're just kind of getting ideas right now, reaching out to people that are also like YouTubers or just well-known in Facebook or the Reddit sub with auto hotkeys that might want to, just have a quick interview and talk about whatever they work on or have questions asked to them about something they've done.
You have a lunch?
What'd you say?
No, I just had breakfast.
Will you have a lunch?
I'll send you like an emoji of a hamburger.
If there's a lunch, I will be interested.
Yes.
Well,
No, that's a very good idea. I like this idea of having a way to cover various subjects and
Yeah, we were initially thinking probably 2 days, but do them in half days, just because, especially if it was 8 hours, and whether we started in the morning or at night, for someone, it would be a terrible time frame, right, around the world. So we were thinking maybe 7 a.m. in the Pacific time and 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is probably the best globally, and going for 4 hours with breaks, but having, like as Thom said, specific lessons that'll be led by us and other people, right? So if you also are interested in leading a conversation, chime in and let us know. But we have I've already talked to Tank. I reached out to Jack Dunning. He hasn't replied yet, but he could be interested with his books and stuff. I'm gonna try to get him to offer up like a free book for anybody that attends. And Geek Dude, Dimitri, who's done the version 2 auto hockey stuff, a lot of Isaiah, I volunteered him, Raptor X, yeah, good topic. And obviously Thom and John has I almost drafted him without telling him, but I'm like, no, I guess I should ask. I knew you would, be open to it, but I appreciate it. So anyway,
Yeah.
Guy, did you figure out your mic issue? That'd be a no.
You're
We don't
muted.
hear you at all. No,
For
you're
now,
muted.
you're muted.
You're muted. As opposed to mutated, then he'd be an X-Man. I don't have there. I would click off my.
Is that any better now?
Oh, way
yeah.
better.
Good now.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've started using a VIP card for my photography business, and the clients get I'll try it this way, a little NFC card, and on the back there's a picture of their family portrait. And they tap the card on their phone and it pops up the URL of where the VIP thing is. Now, I'm trying to automate things, so I've got myself a little NFC reader. It's a bog standard thing. And I'm just wondering, I saw one thread on there that wasn't answered from 2016, and it says, has anyone ever automated NFC at all with AutoHotkey? What I want to be able to do is when I put the card on the reader, if there's information on it, like as if it's reading a barcode, because I've got the barcode scanner and the camera attached. So if they're scanning a barcode or QR code, if it's a web address, it'll launch the web browser. If it's a V card, it'll save it to contacts. Does that make sense? So it automatically channels the appropriate data to the appropriate application. But I just don't know how to access the NFC reader from AutoHotkey.
My first question would be like, does the NFC reader comes with software that you can?
The NFC reader is a standard reader by ASC, and they have an SDK somewhere, and it's probably done in some kind of programming language that I have absolutely no idea of. It's what it looks to be like an industry standard. This thing is available freely it's been for years off Amazon, etc.
But let me rephrase the question. So basically, once you connect that onto your computer,
Yes.
can you use it right away, or do
Yes.
you have to have a program installed?
You have to have a program,
Do
any
you have to
program
install
installed.
anything?
Yeah, so when I put a card on it, it beeps and the light goes green. Now, I have different programs and they all detect that there's a card present on it and they can read it. But I have no AutoHotkey control. One of the free tools that they have is NFC Tools for Desktop, which is free. And all it does is it just pops up
Let
the
me double check
information
a
a
few
few times.
I'm gonna double check something.
Zayas, can you expound on, because some people watching this may not understand why you asked the question you did, but it's a really good starting point. Can you explain why you were asking that?
Allow me just 1 minute. So
Okay,
basically, let me double check
You
something
want-
before I.
Well,
You
I'll
want
answer
to-
that question.
Do you want the brand of the card reader? Would that help you?
Give me just a minute. I'm sorry.
I was gonna
You saw your
say,
email, Guy.
Okay.
just open Notepad and click on it and then scan it and see if it's just sending data. Because most of those kind of things, they'll send whatever the code is with an enter at the end.
This one doesn't. If it just loaded it into the clipboard, that would be awesome because I can analyze it, and deal with the data. But it doesn't. It goes beep. Yes.
But Notepad doesn't catch anything.
No.
Oh, okay. Because I know barcode readers do that, where they are just mimicking key presses.
Correct. This isn't. This isn't mimicking. I mean, it is a USB reader, and I know that Windows can detect when something comes on, but
Okay.
I could always
Sorry
test this.
about that. I had to attend something real quick. That was the reason why I couldn't answer right away. So here's the thing, Joe, to answer your question. If the reader came with an additional software, which you could open up. We could use AutoHotkey to kind of like automate that software.
Correct, and that was my first.
That was the first. That would be the first idea, right? Now it looks like this is actually being handled by a driver. So the driver gets installed, which might be a DLL installed in Windows,
Yes.
and that driver is registered in a way that as soon as the hardware creates anything, then the driver goes ahead and just does everything automatically. So basically, we would have to either try to connect to the driver itself, which is way too hard for whatever we're looking for, or trying to find a way to figure out how the driver is actually notifying the programs about it, which might be a little bit easier because I think a long time ago, Joe, we talked about how most of the programs send messages to one another, right? We have in AutoHotkey the send message and post message functions, and most of the programs behind the scenes do something similar. We could try to find out whether the reader is actually sending any type of messages when it reads the card, and we can actually kind of like try to grab that and perform an action based on that. That would be my first attempt at trying to figure out how to automate that. Because if you do not have a software, it gets a little bit trickier. You would have to go a little bit deeper to get whatever the hardware itself is doing. Yeah.
So I believe that in the previous query, we actually have a script that shows up all the messages happening behind the scenes in Windows. And it's a script that I think I might have gotten from Joe. I'm just pulling it up now, which I think would be useful for, I mean, we're talking about NFC at the moment, but it can be any.
We can try and see, we can try to see what happens when the reader actually reads a card to verify if it sends any kind of messages. That would be kind of like an attempt. It doesn't mean that it's going to be like that, but we could try that, because not having a specific program actually running, doing anything, makes it a little bit trickier to kind of like latch
Narrow it down. Yeah.
Well, I can run programs. That's not a problem. I have two different programs that will read the card, which I could automate. Looking into, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So that's the thing. So basically, it is exactly as I'm kind of thinking. That reader just installed a driver, and those programs just connect to that driver. That's what they're doing. So the real question then would be, how would we use AutoHotkey to connect to that driver? That would be the question itself. In there, I do not have much experience. I have never connected to hardware drivers directly before, but I can tell you that that's the general idea of what is going on. So my suggestion to you, if you have not dealt with drivers prior to this, I would suggest just automating the programs that actually read the drivers. So that would be a little bit easier. And
Yeah, that could probably do.
I have some experience in that. Actually,
maybe he can help.
if what was the name of the program you wanted to use? You said that was free.
NFC tools.
Okay, I'll have to look into that program specifically, but I can kind of show you what I've done. Where, let me see. Let me share my screen here. So I have a.
There's a program called Shell. I got it from this shell hooks, and it just displays all the shell hooks behind the scenes that are being produced.
Okay.
So you could say, well, actually, I'm after this one, and I'm trying to think who created it.
Yeah, if you find it, just send it in the chat. Do you know what a breadboard is? Like, have you ever played around with those or seen them?
Yes.
So I do a lot of breadboard stuff. So I have a reader right here, and I have my card. You touch it here, and I use this program, which is designed for breadboards. That's why your program would be different. And then I can go to Tools, and I can go to Serial Monitor, which is it's not going to let me do right now because I don't have this hooked up. I would need to rewire it but that should only take a few minutes. But it pops up with serial monitor. Let me see if I can Google a picture.
It'll be a USB monitor because it's coming from the USB.
Yeah,
but
and it kind of looks like command prompt in a way.
Yeah.
And what it does is whenever I, scan the card, it, depending on how I program it, because I have this program here, which is, this one I'm just looking for numbers. Okay, yeah, I'm looking for numbers in this program. And it'll spit out, I scan and it spits out the number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever I put into it. And I can say with auto hotkeys, I'm able to, I've done it two ways. I've done it where it does when active, Control A, which will highlight everything, copy it, and then I have that data on the keyboard, and then I can either clear the data out, or I could use, something to just say, I want to read the last line, copy that to the clipboard. I've also done it where I've done OCR, where it targets that window, and then does OCR with that. And then I just do some if functions where it's like, if number starts with 1, go to, this website, go to that app. But I would have to look at a little bit more into the program you're using versus this one, because this is for breadboards.
No, I understand. And I've done that with a program that scans QR codes from the camera, from the and I've done that whether it's a QR code coming from the scanner or the camera, or it's a barcode. The data gets treated the same. It looks for specific identifiers in the data and triggers off the appropriate. So, for instance, if it's got HTTP in it, it'll launch a browser, etc. So the data handling I can handle. I would love to know how to use a DLL properly and do it programmatically without having to use a third-party software as a bridge between AutoHotkey and. But if no one has that experience, then I'm just going to have to do it the only way I know, and that means I'm going to have another little app running in the background, which is a real pain.
So basically, here's the thing. The bridge solution would be the most stable one for now, because as nobody has actually, well, we could research that later on. You can take a little time and search in the forums to verify if somebody has actually latched into a driver before, and I know that they have. And yes, it would be with DLL calls then. We would actually perform some DLL calls to kind of connect to it and get any offer that it is sending.
Well, I don't know how to use DLL calls. I do not know how to connect to a DLL file. Now, my thought is, as an educational point of view, if I knew how to do that, it opens the doors for me to connecting to all other DLL libraries and getting greater functionality than just this USB card reader.
DLL cars are awesome.
Functions in AutoHotkey, I assume you have, right?
Yes.
DLL calls are just calls to a function. The only problem is that they're in a different language. They are usually in C or C++, right?
Yeah, which I have no clue of.
Right, no, but basically, the way how you do it, just a general overview for people who haven't done this before and are curious about DLL calls. You're going to call a function. Now, in AutoHotkey, you pass parameters to the function, right?
Yeah.
The parameters passed to functions within a DLL call need to be a specific type. That's what is going on. That's the difficult part about it. Because when you pass a parameter, if the parameter is expecting an integer and you don't send an integer, it's going to fail. The same if it's expecting a string and you do not send a string, it would actually fail. So the general overview about a DLL call is you're calling functions the same way as you usually do, but each parameter you have to specify what it is. And that's the reason why DLL calls tend to look so big, because one of the parameters is the type, is going to say uint or string. And the next parameter is whatever you're passing, and it should match whatever you're sending. And you would do this for each parameter. That's all. So DLL calls are not really that hard. The hard part is knowing what to pass to that function and how to pass it correctly. That's what would be the kind of like a little bit more difficult part about it.
Okay.
To clarify a couple of things there, Isaiah,
Yeah, I'm just looking at that.
DLL calls for you aren't that hard, right? For those of us who aren't programmers and stuff, it's
Like that's a huge, different world. No,
And
what I meant by that is
specifically-
just, yeah.
Yeah, I know. They're not overly complex. The problem is, you know, mainly you have to be able to read the documentation on it, which is
Yes.
steep learning curve, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to say, which it's not probably not likely, but it is possible. There's a COM object, correct?
Hopefully.
Right.
I know that there is I believe an SDK is a way of communicating. Is that correct? A developer's SDK. What's one of those? Because I believe that's the tools you need to communicate with hardware.
Right.
That'll be like a library of code.
Right. Yeah.
Probably written in
your
C.
point, a different language. Right. Yeah.
But
Yes.
if they give you this library, and I believe there is a library for this piece of hardware, and it's a universal library because there is an NFC standard for any NFC reader. So it's like plugging a keyboard into the computer. You know, if it's a keyboard, it has to perform for Windows in a particular way. So there must be some kind of universal communication with NFC.
What we could try to find on the forums is whether there's an NFC wrapper or NFC library already done in AutoHotkey, which I would be surprised if there isn't. If there is, then that's what we could try and use.
So the only one I found was from 2016, and there was a question, and there's some DLL calls in there, but there was no answer.
Right.
No one answered it. So before I invested hours and hours and hours and days of my time going down that rabbit hole, I just wanted to ask the experts.
Right. So in this case, my point still stands. The easier, quickest way to have it working right now would be using the bridge, and then later on researching how to connect more directly via the other calls.
Oh, I still, the COM object is the bridge. If there's a COM object, right? That's
or ActiveX. Right. Yeah.
yeah, that is
I have no idea. No idea.
right. But my point is, that's what the COM object is. It's a translator into the other languages. That's a standardized way that we can connect to it. So that's just I'm just hammering it home, right? The DLL call, which is actually just this morning, Isaiah and I, one of our planned next courses is something around DLL calls and possibly COM objects, but we need to discuss exactly what we're going to cover in that topic. But it's a steep concept, and I put a link, Guy, by the way, I don't know if you've seen it, in the both chats.
I saw it.
Of how to, he did one, this was like 10 years ago, on connecting to a DLL call.
Yes.
So it's a good starting place.
Okay.
But me, it's like, and you can do like I did like probably 8 years ago, watch it over and over and over and over, and slowly it makes sense. It's a lot of different stuff that we're not used to. But the tricky part is you'll get to understand that, but the DLL you're going to be playing with is different and might be even written in a different base language, and where the documentation, all that is, it's asking a lot for a non-programmer to be able to tackle that.
And that's why I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, because it's weeks worth of my time.
Which is why I keep iterating the COM object wouldn't be.
Right.
If there's
Well,
one
I
that's
don't know if there's COM object either. I can't tell.
I understand that. That's why I'm saying let's look for one. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be kind of like the first step then, like kind of research if there is a COM object for NFC around. Windows might have one.
Well, we don't know. Yeah, I mean, but it's easy. It's simple to look through, right? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because the SDK again is written in a different. Yeah, they provided it, but it's in some other language that we don't necessarily know.
Well, we don't need to know the language. We just need to know what parameters to pass.
Yes,
Right.
yes, you do. You need to be able to study it and be able to understand how to communicate to it. That's my point. It's not standardized. The
Wouldn't that be
COM object is
documented?
standardized.
Wouldn't that be documented?
If it is documented, yeah, and then you would have to research and spend some time researching
Okay.
the documentation, because sometimes the documentation is not as clear cut as we might like. Okay.
Well, and
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's change topic to a bit more fun. You last time you showed me the ACC viewer where you can put crosshair on something and find out the path to it, and that has worked really, really, really well. And I've been able to programmatically select different elements on the form. I was wondering if there is a way that you can work it backwards. Remember the ACC viewer with the cross that you gave me?
sure.
And the cross, the cross comes up, and you can drag it onto a window, and it puts a little red box around it, and you can figure out what the path is to that particular element. Well, if I know that that element contains data, let's say X, Y, Z, is there a reverse lookup where I can say, go and find me the path of the element whose value is X, Y, Z, as opposed to me going through and looking at each element and checking their value?
What would you be looking for? I don't understand.
Okay, so if I have a form that has a lot of elements on it, a lot of them are not visible because it's like 10 different forms have been piled on top of each other, and they switch the forms in and out of visibility. They don't actually destroy the forms and redraw them. So when you're looking at the window and you're looking at the tree, the structure, the ACC structure, there is like, I don't know, 200 different elements there to look through. And then I've got to click on each one of them and see where the red box is and see if that's the element I'm actually looking for. So I've managed to identify a few elements, for instance, the first name and the last name of a client. But there's elements I'm not being able to grab. So what I'm looking for is, if I know there's a particular data in that element, I'm looking for the to identify that element with the data that's populated with, not by its path, in order to find its path to programmatically get it later on. So I'll give an example. If your surname is, if your first name is Joe, look through the form and tell me which element has got Joe in it, and find me the path of that element, so later on I can refer to it as first name.
Well, the ACC library itself, I don't think it has, well, I'm not really sure if it has that particular function, but
It does.
it does?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that is something.
that'll loop across all the
That's
thing.
what I was gonna say. Like, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, on AutoHotkey, what you can do is actually loop through all the elements from that window and search their text and select the one that has the text that you're looking for.
Okay.
But I would argue, why do you even, at that point, the path is irrelevant, right?
Right.
You probably have what you need. You know, you
Well,
don't
no, I
need.
agree with you. No, this is to reverse engineer and find out what the path is in the first place for that data. So once I have the path for that data, then I'll be reusing it over and over again as the path. So it's a way of reading a form off another program when you can't easily identify the path in the first place. Because if I could ID the path easily, then I wouldn't need this.
So hold on. Let me get something straight. That means that the form, when you open up the program, is not presenting that particular control, and that's the reason why you're going to put the crosshair on it, right?
No, I can put the crosshair on it, but I can't find the path.
For whatever reason.
So for whatever reason.
I would say that just sounds like
the
bad
only other way,
design.
If I populate that with a particular piece of data, I know that that data is, that path definitely contains that data. So go and find the data and find and give me the path it's in.
Right. And well, once you have the control ID, I don't think you need the path to it. That's what I would say.
Correct. The control ID changes every time you restart the program. And that's why
Jeez.
you need the path, not the control ID.
Right.
Well, the class NN.
Oh, the class and end, right.
Yeah. So that's why I'm using the path, and it's now so reliable. When I manage to find the path to a particular piece of data, it's very reliable.
Okay. But in that case, you cannot get the path for whatever reason. That would be the question, like, how do you get the path to something that changes all the time? Well, at least the ID changes all the time, but if the ACC library cannot find the path, then
Probably can't see it.
yeah, so even if you find the text for it, you're not going to see a path on it because the ACC library cannot see the path itself, you know?
Sounds like the
Basically,
program
in that
is just
case,
poor
you would
design.
Yeah, you would be better off just grabbing the ID every time. So when you restart the program or when you restart your script, you just get the ID, that current ID. And if the program restarts, you would just
So
have
if
auto
the
ID.
program restarts, would the process ID of the program change?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. So probably you can have AutoHotkey to keep checking on that program ID if it changes. If it,
Rescan the page.
if it just goes away, then it would just go ahead and rescan the page and get the ID for that control again. That would be the best solution. Because if you could not get the path with ACC library, you will not gonna get it, even if you go ahead and scan it by text.
Loop across.
Right, it would probably not find it like that.
What I mentioned earlier is, you know, yeah, you can loop across different elements in the ACC structure, right? To look for, hey, does this value have this word, right? Okay, well, you can do that. But if you're dragging the tool over the thing and it doesn't show you anything, you're
No,
not
it
going to
does.
get it.
It shows me a path. It draws a red rectangle around it.
Oh.
But the name and the value are empty.
Well, then you're not going to find it with what I'm talking about.
Right. There's not gonna
Even
be-
though it's populated, or even though it's populated on the screen, the ACC cannot find the name and value of it.
Right. We
Right.
covered this a couple weeks ago. I showed you. That's why I said, like, which I told Isaiah, we were looking into it, and I said, I tried this, and I tried the UI automation approach. Neither one of them, you get that text. So,
Right.
unfortunately, you're screwed. Like, it's you can't use either of those.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it is a little bit complicated to get it. In that case, then the ID is kind of like the only way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really rare. So, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
So
weird.
I think using the path, I might be able to get the ID.
Right.
And if I've got the ID, then I should be able to get the contents via the ID.
Well,
Right.
I mean, I told you a couple weeks ago, you know, I had written something that allows you to find the class NN reliably every time. Right? I wrote that.
I
And-
didn't.
because, yeah, I wrote that in the email to you. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Right. I haven't shared it yet because I told
Okay.
Isaiah a day or two. He just started back on Monday, and it's been a crazy week. But I told him, I said, I wrote something. I'm not ready to share it because, you know, I'm not a programmer, right?
Okay.
But Isaiah can review it and make it less embarrassing for me. But basically what I did was I said, go, you know, get the class, the overall parent class here, because there is a script on the AutoHotkey forum for getting the parent class, not the class NN, but the parent class out of XY coordinates, right? And then what I just did was said, okay, now let's get, you know, all the class NNs under it, loop across them to look for this text, which it sees, and then, you know, get that class NN, and then we have the coordinates. Now, the problem is sometimes the class NNs overlap each other, so that, you know, how do we get the exact coordinates of exactly the stuff? And it has to be the exact coordinates, not just a range, and that's why I'm like, okay, we'll need to, you know, flesh this out a bit more, but that's what I would take on that approach.
The coordinates work really, really well when you've got a standard size screen. I can use your because there's a label next to the field. I can use your automate my task function to identify the location on the screen. But the moment you change the screen size significantly or the screen resolution significantly, that would fail, would it not?
Well, first I'm not using image search, right, in my approach. And that's kind of the main point, right, is I almost never try to use image search stuff, right, which is ironic because I have automate my tasks, right, but I almost never go that route because it's unreliable and for exactly reason you're saying.
And it's slow too. You know, depending on what you're doing in your computer specs, it can be like really slow compared to other code that could
If
run.
you can limit where it's searching, it's not nearly as
Well,
bad.
yeah, but I know a lot of people are using it for gaming is where it's popular.
And it's been really quick for me. So, you know, it in human terms it's quick, in computer terms it might be slow, but it doesn't impede the functionality of the human, you know. So it has its place at the right place. But if I can do everything programmatically, then the reliability is much improved.
In that case, Joe's solution, not using the image search, would be the best, because that way, then you have something that is way more reliable. That's what is going to happen.
Awesome. So what I could do is have it populate a page with test data, and then read the test data and calibrate itself to that instance of that form. Joe, when you have when your code's been sanitized, I would love to be able to peek at it. Now, I'm asking questions, but please stop me if you think what I'm saying is, or other people want to jump in, and I don't want to hog your time.
Yeah, I mean, I got a few chats coming up. I was gonna say if you want to do more of a one-on-one thing, that might work pretty good.
Tom, why don't you bring up your questions, and then we'll see where we are in time, and we can jump back into the guide.
Yeah. No, that makes sense too. So I got a few. I'll start with this one from Lucy is her username because it's a simple one. Basically, was asking, is there any auto hotkey script for the video game 3-on-3 freestyle? I would just Google it. I don't know, to be honest, so I would just Google it. If not, the next question was that they're using Pullover's macro creator or whatever. You know, is there something that's going to be smarter than that? Well, a human, basically. There's really no better answer than a macro recorder is a human doing the actual code themselves. I mean, if you really want, you're just starting to learn. I always tell people to kind of, macro recorders are great if you're just starting out because then you can see the code, but it's going to be very dirty. It adds a lot of stuff you don't actually need, but you can always take the code there and then start manipulating, seeing what it's due, know what to look up, you know, on the documentation and read into it. But a human's basically going to be the best answer for, you know, what's going to be smarter than a macro recorder.
Now, I would like to jump into on that one and kind of clarify, maybe later on, I don't know if you can do that now, but what does that person mean by smarter? Because, you know, when it goes to smart, quotation marks around it, would be like making the correct decisions. Is that what he's talking about? Like, because you can create a very smart program.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
I think they're talking more of dirty code, basically. So maybe smarter.
That's what I was gonna say was, it sounds like they're dissatisfied with it for some reason, and that's the real question.
Right.
What is it they're not happy with, right?
Right.
Automate my task, even though I just bashed it as far as, you know, it's not all image search, but it gives you very clean code. You know, right? Auto hotkey syntax, it's very clean. I hate macro recorders, and I'm not knocking PMC. It's just, in general, they give you so much crap. Which is also why, like, even the VBA, it's actually gotten better. Like in Excel or Word, the VBA macro recorder, right? It does a better job at making code, but it's still just the crap it throws in there, right? And it does get back to is, what are you unhappy with? And Tom, still to follow up on what you're saying, there is no substitute for having someone that has knowledge right? It can do
That's
the
right.
Well, yeah. I mean, it might be a little smarter and or less dirty if you're just learning, but you know, that's a good opportunity then to actually learn, so you can have better code for it. You know, because if anybody watching this that wants to understand what we mean by like too much extra code, I personally could say I want to move my mouse from here to here, or you know, wherever my mouse is, move it to this location. It's one line of code, you know, just saying mouse move. But the macro recorder, if I'm recording and I move my mouse like this, if I like slightly move down during my move, it's going to capture that and it's going to end up being like mouse move like 10 lines of code when it really only needs to be one. So I guess that's kind of a good way to say like it gets too much, it's too dirty.
So what is going on is that probably the recorder is actually recording every single
Yeah.
movement, right? So, and that would be good to tell the recorder, okay, don't record the whole thing, just the beginning and end,
Yeah.
and don't record anything in between. But it depends on what the intention of who created the recorder is. If they want to kind of like match exactly what
Yeah.
you did, you're gonna have that like 10 lines of code for one little simple move.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the exact thing you did.
Yeah, no, yeah, it can capture a little too much. It'd be nice if it had a mode where you could switch between, kind of like what you're saying is get the first move, delete everything until the last move, but then I could click a button and say, I actually do want you to catch every move.
Whole thing, right?
That would be nice to have a way to switch between those. Even then, I don't promise how well it would do, but
Yeah, that would
basically
be kind of
just
like a verbose option. Like by default,
Yeah.
it's just gonna capture the beginning and end. And if you want more specific details, then you use the verbose mode, and it would capture everything. You know, that would
Yeah,
be something.
that'd be awesome. I'll have to email the guy or something and be like, hey, can you add this feature?
Yeah.
That would be great. The other one, the question, this is more for Joe, from, I guess, just C is his name, Psy. Is it possible to zoom in and out of the screenshot with mouse wheel for your screen clipping tool with OCR?
Not at the moment, but Hellbent's working. That'll be in the new functionality whenever we release it.
Okay.
That's one of the things. We'll be able to zoom in and out. We'll be able to add text, add a few shapes like arrows and underline and stuff. And I think there's one other thing I'm forgetting about, but yeah, it's going to be a pretty slick little tool.
Okay. So he'll be happy then to hear that's coming soon. And that's what I got for now. Unless, you know, someone wants to expand on their question, which I'll get to when I see that. Do you have anything come up in yours?
What's that?
I was wondering if you had any questions that came up on yours now.
No, nothing I've seen. Other than someone was asking is if, you know, AutoHotkey is just Windows and can it be ported to Mac? And like, yeah, not, you know, the real strength of AutoHotkey is how well it's tied to Windows. And whenever you have something that tied to something, you know, it's unfortunately not going to port over easily.
I think there
And
was,
back
there
to
was
the
an
whole-
attempt on that, right?
Well, there was I don't know, was there? There was the Iron Age.
Iron
game.
Age, okay, right. That was the
we
idea
were supposed to-
behind it. Yeah, that was the idea behind it. But I'm not really sure where that project, you know,
It died a
is ending
long
or-
time ago.
Yeah, if it died. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to assume it died because I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it was, I'd say, 8 years ago at least?
Yeah.
I remember it.
But then again, there's stuff that I've just discovered that I'm like, how did I not know about this? Like, I found the version 1 to version 2 converter. I don't know if you saw that video.
Still there.
And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, you literally plug in your version 1 code, push a little arrow button, and then it instantly translates the whole script in version 2. And so far, it seems to work amazingly. And then I look at the date of the original post on the forums, and I was like, wow, this came out in like 2016. How have I not heard of this?
Yeah, Dimitri has been working on that with another guy, and he said, you know, it's not bad, but when you have a GUI, GUIs are just so complex that it'll often break in trying to translate a
Okay.
GUI.
I haven't done a GUI really yet, but I've done pretty much everything else with it, just to see how it does. But yeah, I mean, so far it's amazing for what it's doing. But yeah, I was just so shocked to see that, many, many years after it had been released. And I was like, how does nobody talk about this? So I did a video on that if anybody wants to check out how smooth that actually runs. I keep thinking Jean's frozen because he's like so still. And I just wait for him to blink and I'm like, okay, he's not frozen. Like he's so still.
But I have a cold today, so I feel frozen.
Ah.
Yeah, so you were asking if we had questions. Actually, I would do kind of like a more general question. How many of us in here have actually tried version 2 of AutoHotkey, and why haven't you tried it if you haven't?
Yeah, I'll go first. I've tried it. I haven't really translated or transitioned over into version 2 very often. If I see someone on the Reddit forums who are asking for version 2, I'll do it. But it's just, for me, why I'm still kind of stuck on version 1 is it's in beta. So I'm like, it'd probably take a few years to truly become mainstream, just because you Google any type of thing you're looking for, every script out there, pretty much like 98% of all scripts are still in version 1. So it's going to take a while for people to really have data out there where they're going to want to use it when they're, mostly for the new people. I do like version 2 though, because it looks more like the mainstream syntax. But if you're a noob, I think version 1 is a little bit easier to learn. Not that version 2 is that much harder, but yeah.
Okay. So basically, what is kind of like mainly stopping you would be the fact that it's not widely used right now. So basically, that means, and this is true, by the way, whenever you need help with it, you find yourself with very little information out there about what to do with it. Especially with the changes that they did. One of the tiny little details, you know how in version 1 you can use the for loop to go over an object and kind of like for key value in that particular object you do certain stuff. So what happens is that in AutoHotkey version 2, you can do that with maps and you can do that with arrays, but you cannot do that with literal objects. So if you have a variable that you set up with curly braces and you just set up an object that way, you cannot loop with the for loop with that one. So when I tried that, because it is obvious, like you could do that all the time. And then I did my code, it was failing. Just to figure out why that was failing, I had to research a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then find this kind of like very obscure forum post by Lexicus explaining why it's not doing it, what does it mean. And then it was very hard to find the answer to that simple question. Why can't I do it, right?
The other thing that you mentioned to me just the other day, Isaias, was that in the map, the key, which normally for us, AutoHotkey is case insensitive, that's case sensitive. And like
Right.
that alone for me is just like, oh my God, like I don't want to, mess with that.
That's right. So I do get your point, Thomas, is like, it is a little bit harder to find answers when it is not mainstream, right?
Yeah.
I do get that.
And I feel bad too because, we're kind of the head people. We should be the ones who are putting that information out there so there is documentation, but I'm just being lazy sometimes.
How about you, John? Why haven't you tried?
No, I didn't try it. So I have so many code that I wrote that I prefer to reuse and work with what I've done before to improve it and go further. And so I just don't want to restart a new learning curve at this time, at least. And finding help on this is very hard also. So I prefer to stay for now.
For sure. Okay, so basically, in this case, in your case, it will be more than you already have a code base that is very large and you don't want to kind of like convert everything or start from scratch again. Have you tried the converter, actually? The one that...
there's 25,000 lines in quick access pop-up, so what do you think the converter will do with that? And lots of GUIs. Not a
Oh,
GUI, so
yeah,
because it
that
is
was
an end user application. It's not a script to automate something. It's really an application. So there's a lot of components working one with the classes, working one with the other, and things like that. So no, that would take me a year maybe to convert that. So there's no real value in the end. What's the value of doing that? Yeah, and I was able to write a new application which is quick access clipboard. Maybe you haven't seen it. We have talked
No, I
about it
haven't.
online.
No, I haven't.
So it's a clipboard editor, clipboard rules, and it took me just a few weeks to write that because I reused large parts of quick access pop-up, at least for the wrapping of the application. So I'm always picking in my old stuff, so it keeps me from being more interested in looking in version 2.
All right. Basically, I do like version 2 because of very tiny little details that it is, as you say, like they're not enough to tell me to make me kind of like switch all over. I am on the of the mindset that from now on, new scripts that I do for myself, I would rather do them in Out-of-Hotkey version 2, but old scripts, I'm not going to go ahead and convert them. You know what I mean? But because the benefits of it are not really that big, and they remove a lot of stuff that is already on Out-of-Hotkey. They change some names of very common functions that I'm like, oh, dude, now I have to remember that it's not is object, is obj only. You know, like a create com object, like the function that was create com object is now different. It's create com obj or something like that. I don't remember. So that makes it a little bit trickier. But I do say, like, if I'm gonna create a new script, I would start with that. The biggest is
And
everything
someone,
it is kind of like everything is an expression, and that makes everything so easy.
yeah, that's what I was going to. For someone new to Auto-Hotkey, it's probably simpler to learn the new version because there's only one syntax, one way of writing expressions. If you go to version 1, you have to understand the history of this language and to understand that at some point there was a way and then they changed to a new way just to do simple expressions. But someone new on version 2, how will he get answers to simple questions on the forum? It's really not easy, I think, because all what you'll find will be about version 1, but most of what you'll find will be about
Yeah,
version
so that
1.
was Thomas.
And that's an issue we discussed earlier. Should there be a specific forum for version 2? And that's not what's being done now. I don't know if there's any project of doing something that kind of reference material and community
Well,
of users of version 2.
There is there's a sub forum for version 2, right?
There
For all
is.
stuff. But I think really, does it need a whole new URL, a whole new, its own, a whole entire forum? Which I would argue yes, but and I want to back up one step, John, is I would tweak a little bit what you said about for new users starting, it's easier in version 2 because they have one syntax. I would say, it really also depends on that level's skill. And if they're not programmers, even though I understand your point about version 1 is kind of confusing with the syntax and the functions and commands, it's so much, I think, easier for a noob that doesn't program. I would say version 1 would be better for them. If you're starting off trying to be a programmer or you are a programmer, absolutely version 2 is going to be far easier for you.
Right.
And something I want to bring up too is I know a lot of we're sitting here talking about version 1, version 2. A lot of people out there think they can only have one version. They're like, should I upgrade to version 2? Will that break all my version 1 scripts? How do I convert them all? And it's like, honestly, don't do that because you can have both versions installed on your computer and just the one thing I don't like about version 2 is it's when you save a script, it's .ahk, which is also version 1, .ahk. I wish they had made it to be .ahk2, but you can go into your system and actually create your own extension now. So on my computer, I save a script and I can actually say .ahk2, and my computer knows, but you do have to set that up versus, version 2 automatically recognizing that.
By the way, that is a good point. Two things I want to point out in there. If you're going to be using an extension, try to make it always three characters long instead of AHK2, which is 4 characters long. You would do AH2, and there was a specific reason for that. You might not hit this bug, so it's very weird if you hit this bug. But what happens is that if you're running certain type of scripts, and Windows might break, because there is this, how do I come about this? There is a specific type of naming convention in DOS, which if you put a file that has 4 characters as an extension, that naming convention breaks, and your script is going to behave in an unpredictable way. It has happened,
but it's probably for very old scripts or very
right.
old
Not only that,
the old short name.
Right, that's
the
the
old
one.
short name that was a long time during DOS.
It is true, and
Yeah.
Well, you guys will laugh. I remember it was like 30 years ago. When HTML was first becoming a thing, people named it with .html, and then they kind of realized what you're saying. It's just
Right.
like, hey, it was breaking shit left and
That's why
right.
we see .htm.
Right. So basically, that is something that is really weird if you hit that bug, because we now in the modern age we can have 4-letter extensions. Like the new Excel extension is XMLS or something like that.
Every
It's
Office
okay.
application has
Right.
one.
It's okay. But I noticed a function, a forum thread about that a couple of years ago. And they were actually referring to that specific bug, and the way how it was breaking was so funny. It was very hard to pinpoint, but that's the reason why Lexicos was recommending just use 3-letter characters for now, because AutoHotkey at least is not handling that. It is not handling it, and if the operating system does not handle it, it's going to break.
Interesting.
That was the first point I wanted to kind of like bring to you. The second is the easy way how you can set up your system to run a specific version of AutoHotkey with one language, with one interpreter, and setting the other one with another one. It's very simple. You just right-click, you create a file, an empty file.
Yeah.
.ah2 extension or HK2 extension, and then just right-click on it and hit Open With, and select the option Always Open With, and go ahead and select your version 2 interpreter, and it would just right away, whenever you double-click on it, it would just go ahead and open it. So it is.
And I actually did a video
yeah.
pretty recently, maybe like 2 months ago. I actually did a video the exact way you're talking about.
Yeah. So if people don't know that you can run both at the same time, yeah, you can. You just right-click on it, select the second interpreter, that's it.
And another way too, I mean, that's the better way, honestly. But another way too is you can always have AutoHotkey version 1 and version 2 on your desktop as like a shortcut if you want, or actually have the program there. And you can drag and drop the script onto the executable, and it will launch it into whatever version you dragged it onto. But the way I did a video on the way you're explaining, and that's definitely the best way to go. I'm gonna have to change my 4-digit thing because now I'm worried.
The reason why I mentioned that one is because on the forums you have this, it was like an regedit script that would add it to the registry, and it was kind of like it adds a few options, like on the menu, like on the right-click menu, it would give you additional options and so on. And it was kind of like complex. Not everybody could do that. But if you do not need the menu options and bells and whistles, you can just do whatever you just showed on your video. Just right-click and do it, and it's very quick. So.
Yeah, it's super smooth and easy.
I think I did a video just recently. File Types Manager. It's a program that you can download and install. It's a free program, but it allows you very, very specific granularity on every program and different extension to change if you're going to open or edit with it or whatever. And it gives you, it's a GUI, right? So it's a cool tool also that if it's not just around this, what we're talking about, like anything, right? It's really helpful. I'll put a link in the chat.
I'll have to leave, guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. See you then.
Thank you.
I'm trying to find that video that I'm talking about just to put it in my chat. But I'm starting to get to the point. I'm sure, Joe, you have it way worse. I have like close to 200 videos. You have over 1,000, I think. And it's so hard sometimes to remember what I named a certain video.
My
So,
most common ones, and it's funny, Jean just laughed, but let me share my screen real quickly here and show, because, and I meant to do this, I want to do it sometime with, actually, was I talking? No, I was talking to Denelson about, so QAP, and let me bring up our editor so I'm not typing into there. I have, so under the Automator, here are, links to my courses. Here are links to pages on the Automator. Here are my playlists. Here are common posts I reference. Here are common webinars. And this way, I don't have to go hunt for them. And so you probably have these things that you often want to reference. And why should it be hard, right? So here I can say, hey, here's my link to my functions page, right? I keep it as a snippet. That way I can post it wherever, right? But it's really helpful to keep organized and quickly be able to share, when you see someone that posts something, you're like, oh, I actually have a video on that, right? You can have your most common videos that you use, right? And have those built into there where it's, that way you're not searching through. And I know, like you said, I'm not going to have a link to 1,040 videos, but it is helpful to have it handy, the ones you use a lot, right?
sorry, I'm reading the question here. Someone's wanting to ask how to open Windows Terminal instead of the default command prompt. I think that's what it would be. I'll share it with you guys. Or I'll just open. Let's see if it works.
I want to mention, maybe Gary can give some Tango lessons as part of the convention.
Oh, because his background.
Page.
Yeah, his background. I was wondering about that too. What that was. Notepad. So, I'll just use a hotkey, why not? So I'm not sure if this will work, but we can try it out.
What did you had a question?
Yeah, he wants to know how to open... It's so hard to type with my mic right in front of my keyboard. Like, I can type, but then I have to look down to place my fingers in the correct place starting off. What did I just call this? A new one? Oh.
Username? Yeah.
Yep. I might have accidentally deleted that when I was pasting over. Alright, let's try that again. So I don't know what the actual thing is. I just Googled this on someone's computer. I would have to look into the exact location, but you're basically looking for wt.exe.
But is that like PowerShell or?
He wants, he has some code, which is just basically a run, like I have here. He wants to know how to open, instead of command prompt, how do you open Windows Terminal?
Throw a return after that too, just so.
And by the way, you're missing a quotation mark at the end of that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't do a good job apparently copying over.
Good thing you have a bunch of AutoHotkey experts to sit here and pick you apart, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. So it is just it cannot find the file specified, but
Yeah.
Now let me that's the thing. I'm not really sure when he refers to Windows Terminal. Let me double check on something.
Yeah, I'm Googling it to try to see if I can find where it's on Windows 10 specifically.
Right.
Windows Terminal.
It looks like something that you have to download or something.
I know I downloaded it a long time ago, but I might have put it in my own file path location, because I know I have it. Wait, can I just
Right. So,
type in Windows Terminal? There's PowerShell.
Is
Maybe
it one of the newer apps?
It is like an app. When I
Is-
added it, it is actually on the App Store,
Okay.
right? So it is something that.
Does it show you if you try to
If you
install
do
it?
not
Does it
have
say the file
installed,
path?
It is not gonna open up.
I must not have it anymore. I
Right,
have
that's
PowerShell,
probably
but
it.
so that's why I can't find it. So you're just gonna have to
Right.
find out where you downloaded it on your computer, which might be something you didn't really look at. So I would just Google, maybe what's the default path. If you put it somewhere yourself and change the path, you're kind of on your own there. I mean, you can do a
Those
search
apps-
for it.
Those apps have a unique ID that it won't matter where it's located.
But basically, if he has it installed, he can go to the Windows menu, start typing
Yeah.
WT, right-click on it, and see the location of it. Like you can click on open location, or so. Let me probably if I show my screen, let me do that real quick.
Yeah, he'll just have to find it himself.
So if you look for any application like PowerShell or something, you can right click on it, open file location. That usually, if it is an app, it's going to give you kind of like the path to a shortcut.
Yeah,
And you can
can't
go
write-
ahead and but you can right click on it and again
Create a
open file
shortcut.
location.
Yeah, just go to
Or
properties.
You can find because what we're trying to do is find out where it's at, right? So
Yeah,
you would
but-
look for Windows Terminal instead of PowerShell. I don't know why my computer just froze.
But yeah, you just go to properties and you can actually
Right.
copy
yeah,
the
you can
file
do it.
path.
It's not an executable, is my point. It's an app.
No, it doesn't matter if it's an app. It would show a shortcut like this, and you just look at the properties of it and where it is located, where the app is located.
and you can copy
Right.
and paste from that
But
window.
then
That
when you go to launch
hopefully-
it, is my point. How are you going to launch it? Is my point.
Well, it would give you something like this.
But it doesn't give you an executable, is my point.
Okay. Well,
The new Windows apps don't,
Right,
and
right.
John, he did a lot of work to get it to where it's built into
Okay.
QAP. Because
okay.
it's tricky. It really, and there are some
Yeah.
forum posts on it talking about how to do it, but holy cow, it's tricky.
Let me double check how this looks like. So I will open this up. Let me get the app and see what happens, what I get when I install it. Because I'm not really sure how would be.
Well, pick a different one that you have already. Whatever.
That's the thing. So probably Calculator is an app. Yeah, that's an app. So if I go to App Settings, what's it? Sorry. Oh, so that's what's that. So it doesn't give me to find the location of it.
No, right.
Why don't you pin it to the start bar and then look, that'll be a shortcut, or a taskbar or something, and then look at the shortcut.
Let's double check on that. Doesn't give me app settings, just gives me the app settings. It doesn't give me a location for it.
it would be under program files, I would think.
Very likely, but no, well, but that's the thing. That's what.
And then
that's
calculator.
what Joe is saying, like, it's not really on. It's not like that. It would be a little bit different. So basically, if I add the Windows terminal, I would not be able to find kind of like a location for it. That's what he was kind of referring to. Which I have never actually dealt with that part. I usually do not install that. So
It would have a Windows, that they'll be somewhere, they'll exist somewhere. in the
that's
hard
what I
drive.
would. That's what I would assume, right?
And
Shaded
I
somewhere.
think it'll be a Windows shortcut, like a user-specific something.
Well, as I was saying, there's a unique ID. Each app has a unique ID, and that's okay. It's kind of like the, what is it, UISD, or what is it? Is it talk about? When you register a COM object, right, or whatever.
Right. The
Yeah.
GUID.
Yes.
GUID.
Get this unique ID, and then Windows knows, hey, this is that thing, right?
Right.
Like, you get that. But
Okay.
then to reference, like I said, there's a post on the forum that I looked through, and I'm like, this is ridiculously complicated. But it's tricky.
I mean, wait,
It's like UID for Windows apps.
are you just trying to run like calculator as a test?
Yeah.
because I've done that where, like, kind of what you were saying, where I don't even do a file path. Let me try it out. I just do run calculator dot
Yeah, that's
exe.
not the app.
No, that's not the app. That's the executable, which is
Oh.
there is a difference there. Yeah, that's what Joe was trying to explain. And I only saw it once. I right-clicked on the app itself and tried.
Oh, trust me, I understand why you're disbelieving, right?
Right, it's kind of like
I went down the same path of like, this is how this,
right, like,
and then I spent an hour, and I'm like, what the, like,
right. So
why would you do this, Microsoft? Why?
Right.
What is the benefit?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
it's
yeah,
ludicrous.
so that's the difference between a program, which would be on programming files, would give you the open file location, and an app, which is a Windows Store app, doesn't have that option. Now they think, oh, that's not what I meant. But, and by the way, probably, let's take a look at what task manager is there. So probably task manager would be task here. Oh, look at that. Path. Access is denied. You cannot actually get the path to that particular app.
Click the
But
explore
here,
button,
look
see
at
what
that,
happens.
Windows Terminal.exe. So there is a Windows Terminal executable out there somewhere. Windows, let's see where it's at.
I mean, can you just copy and paste that for a run?
Yeah, that's
Into
what
a
I'm
run.
trying to kind of like,
Well, like with no path, because
oh,
a lot of times you don't
like
need a path at all.
Windows Terminal.
No, I mean into like an AHK script.
Right, but that's the thing. If you cannot do it here on the run window, you would not be able to do it in AHK. So if I was able to do it here, say for example CMD, if that works, then in AutoHotkey I could just put CMD, run CMD, and it would work. But this one here, Windows Terminal.exe, which is the one that I'm looking for, which is the name of this thing, I want to find out where it's at, but the path is not being given.
That's bizarre.
Right, it
And I'm
is.
honestly saying it's a UWP app. I put a link in the chat on the post that I had gone down where Lexicos was responding back to somebody and they were discussing it. And you can use PowerShell to get a list of all the apps you have, this, that, but it was just like, again, I finally just said, I got pissed off at Microsoft. I'm like, why did you do this so complex? Right? Like, what is the benefit?
Oh, he actually just figured out the path somehow for his program terminal, Windows terminal.
And what was his path?
Yeah, it's user name app data local Microsoft Windows apps wt.exe.
So it would be app data local, you said, right?
Yeah, local Microsoft Windows apps.
And here we have desktop Windows terminal. Here it is. Now the thing is, and notice that the name of it comes with a key. That key would change depending on the computer very likely. That's the reason why it's so hard to find.
Yeah.
So in your case, so he goes there, he gets that, and this is the script that he needs. And now, as soon as he goes ahead and does a run with it, that should actually work. Oh, but oh, so now that should actually work.
Yep, there we go.
So actually, you can find the path to Windows apps in here, but I do not see. And notice that here in Windows apps, you can find them as well. Like WT is there, so he doesn't need the specific one for his computer. He could actually just reference the general folder Windows apps, and he would be able to actually get. Oh, that's interesting. There you go.
Yeah, those are going to be the most
And-
common places to find stuff is in your app data, local, or program files for any type of program you're
You
looking.
know the difference between local and roaming in there, and local load when you go to app data.
I'm not sure. I've never used roaming. I always go to
Right,
local.
So if you go to percent app data, you would go straight to roaming here,
Yeah.
and you have this app data local, I think it is, or local app data is. I always get that wrong. So this takes you to local. Now the reason there's two different things. If you have a program that saves information that is not going to change much, and it's actually a lot of information, you put it in local. And roaming is very interesting because this is a folder that whatever you put here, if you migrate your user, especially if you're in an environment, a Windows environment, that you are in a network, and you connect to different computers,
log in under
whatever is in roaming, if it is set up that way, would transfer off to that new location where you logged in.
That makes sense.
So usually what they do is that here in roaming, they have kind of like settings for the app. That's usually what they have here. A lot of programs just dump everything here, which is not the idea. But here, what you are supposed to be adding here are just information that is going to transfer when you transfer to a new computer to keep your settings. That's the idea behind it. And local would have anything that is not supposed to be transferred or very large data information about the program. That's what is supposed to be the difference between those two.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Isaias, what is it before Windows 7, you don't have one of those, is that right?
Right, so if you're working with XP before Vista and those guys, right, you do not have app data local. So you would have this issue that if you're actually referencing this all the time, your script might break. So you would have to check on the version system of your operating system and verify whether you have app data or not. And for new programs, whenever you're doing new programs, instead of saving to program files, you would actually try to save it into app data local. The reason for it is that if you want to do something in here, you always need permissions to do so. I don't know if you noticed that everything to delete something or to create a new folder, you need administrator permissions.
Mm-hmm.
And that would make your script kind of like need administrative permissions to actually modify this folder. With app data and those guys, you don't need that. So you can create folders and delete stuff from here without needing administrative permissions, which is why it's best to use this. Actually.
Yeah, I ran into a lot of issues with at my job with this kind of problem in AutoHotkey.
Right.
Writing a program that was either adding or deleting a file, like you're saying, specific folders, it was like virus detected. It's trying to delete, admin stuff. So yeah, I went through a lot of this of just trying to transfer folders over to other locations with the IT department. It was a huge pain, and I ended up just giving up the project because it wasn't worth it.
You could have, that was I don't know if you have, whenever you install AutoHotkey, it gives you the option to install it with what user control?
UAC?
Yeah, the UAC control. You can actually run the script in administrator mode, and it would negate all those issues. But as soon as AutoHotkey is installed as an administrator, your antivirus software might go haywire.
Yeah.
It is like a double-edged sword.
Well, when it was funny because when I first started, designing this, I've ran my AutoHotkey scripts all the time, never had much of an issue. And then one day, I just keep trying to run my script over and over again. I'm like, it won't even start. I was like, what is going on? And like 15 minutes later, I get a phone call from IT, and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, you keep trying to run a virus on your computer. I was like, oh, so something's blocking it from even running. Because I got no notification indicating, like, this might be a possible virus. And I was like, what is going on? And I just felt so dumb because it took me like 15 minutes before they called me. And they're like, you tried running it like 20 times.
Like, what are you doing? No, but that's the thing. One of the issues that I have with AutoHotkey in corporate environments is that, as it stands, and really for a good reason, the power that you have with AutoHotkey is too much, right? Not everybody should have the power to modify everything on your corporate environment. So there's a good reason why antiviruses go ahead and try to flag it as a virus, even though it isn't. But that's the reason why it is so difficult to kind of like try to automate stuff in a
Yeah.
corporate environment.
Well, so one thing I did when I was in the corporate environment is basically the same thing was, there's a lot of issues with it trying to run. We have a drive that was shared amongst everybody, so I put a folder in there. My other coworker can access it. So we created a folder in the hard drive called like auto hotkeys or something. And then we were able to get IT to basically make it so that if an AHK file runs from that folder specifically, it can run. Obviously, we had to get approval before we put something in there. And then for testing, same thing, but on my desktop, I had a folder called Auto Hotkeys, and they were able to specifically say, okay, we know Tom's not going to do anything, hopefully bad. He can run from this folder, But then you're saying like, everything's going to hit. It makes me think of that movie, Office. What was it, Office Space, where they're skimming off. They write that program that skins off a penny every transaction or whatever. And they write bad code that steals like millions of dollars.
That's the thing. You don't want to be in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And you never know who's going to be the smart guy who's going to try and do something like that in a corporate environment. That's what happens.
I had a question come up. It's pretty simple to answer. Will AutoHotkey have a smartphone version available, support for Android, iPhone devices in the near future? Are there plans for such development? As far as I know, no.
No, but
again,
but there's a couple things, right? You can use an emulator to connect your via Knox or BlueStack. But Windows, in version 11 is going to natively allow you to run some apps as well. And so when that happens, I don't think we're going to be able to do control clicks and snap, right? But we will be able to probably automate some stuff directly without even installing an emulator, right? Which to me is pretty awesome.
Well, and I know with like my Android phone, I can plug it in, and I forget the name of the program I'm using, but it then lets me, it sends my screenshot basically live to my desktop. So you might be able to do like pixel searches and stuff like that, but you're not going to be able to probably like full on get the true power of AHK ever on Android. But
it's kind of funny that, and I forget, sorry, who asked earlier, they were asking if AutoHotkey can, get ported to a Mac, but it'll kind of have that power. If AutoHotkey was ported to a Mac, here's the kind of stuff you'd be able to do. That's what we'll be doing on the phone.
right. So, and just to kind of like clarify why it's not that simple to do that, and Joe touched on it, it is because, AutoHotkey is very tied to the OS, but let me explain what that means. A lot of the functions that we use, so for example, when you use message box, the message box, it is a function. You don't know it, but it is a wrapper for a Windows function of the same name. And the operating system has a function called message box. When you go to Linux, what is going to happen is that probably that function doesn't exist, or it has a different name. Okay, so the interpreter, the AutoHotkey interpreter, would have to translate whenever you put a message box, depending on the operating system, what is the name, the real name of that function, and that takes a lot of work. So right now, as Lexicus, who is maintaining AutoHotkey at the moment, is working on version 2, he's not actually interested in porting it into other operating systems, and the person who was doing that kind of like dropped the project, I think based on how much interest was there. Most of the people who are using AutoHotkey are Windows-based. So the people who actually want it in Linux is not that many. So probably right now, for the time being, that is not something that is going to happen in the near future.
yeah, and the program I was using, I was talking about that lets me mirror. It's called A Power Mirror. So that's a way that I guess you could kind of automate. It wouldn't be on your phone. You would just be having like a video of what's going on your phone, but you can still control it from there. So you could, I guess, technically do like clicks and stuff.
With Windows 10, there's the Your Phone app built into it, right? Which you can mirror your phone directly, and I use it. I also push bullet, in like Telegram has built-in bots, which you can, work through your phone. So you could put an app on your phone, and then often be able to do stuff on your phone or vice versa, right? But with agreeing with what Tom's saying is like the actually controlling of your phone, the way we use AutoHotkey, it's not going to be nearly as active as
Powerful. There are apps on, depending if you're an Android or something like that, that allow you to do that. But they're not nearly as usable or easy to use as AutoHotkey.
Tank had told me of Wine. It's like Windows on Linux.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I've used
I tried
Wine.
installing that on my phone and connecting to it, but I wasn't able to get it to do anything.
Oh, I remember one.
That's been around for a long time. I was using that when I was like in middle school.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
You were a wino in middle school, Tom? What are you saying?
Yeah, I was drinking wine in middle school.
I waited to high school. All right, well, I got to get going. I know you guys, but thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Sorry we didn't get back to you guys, but there were some really fun and interesting topics that we covered.
Absolutely, and I mean, I know I sometimes throw a span out the works with my enthusiasm. However, another time, another place.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
See you guys.
Bye.
All right. Looks like I only just got one watcher right now, which I'm guessing is the Anchored Island. So thank you for the super chat or whatever that's called. I always appreciate that. Helps me keep going. Do you have any more questions about that? I'll actually test that out because I'm interested how well that will work using the mirror program. So I have that here. Yeah, A-Power Mirror. It's been a while since I've used this. And don't know if I have a cord to hook up to my computer right now. Is it even going to run? It says it's running. That's weird. No, it's just being slow. So this is really cool. This is what it looks like. Yeah, you just continue trial. I'm not sure how much this does, but this one will support one device, which is all I really need. But you can only do 10 minutes at a time. There are other programs, but for recording, I only need 10 minutes of time. But same idea on whatever program out there you find for free. I don't have a cord right now for my computer. It's up in my room. But it would start displaying my actual screen here. And then you got options over here of like, live, I don't know, I guess I can't see them right now, but you can also record your screen and whatnot. So I'm thinking if you have that, you could just have the auto clicker, put it where you want it, or use a coordinate mode, and just have it, boom, 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 boom. Or pixel detect, if it's a game you're trying to auto click on, maybe you can find a pixel that will do it, or image search. There's a few ways. So I'll give that a shot, and see you guys all next Friday. Bye.